Brainy the cat. Brainy the RPG cat. It's a kitty cat.
Hello, cats and kittens, felines and felidae, humans and variant humans, at every race, class, and subclass. Welcome to an episode of Braining the RPG Cat. So we just came on very quickly after making an erroneous previous stream. And I probably made the most grievous error I possibly could have, because tonight we are going to be drinking Pilk once again in order to benefit Autistic Self-Advocacy Network via Tiltify. And, well, we made the mistake of going ahead and filling the glass and drinking the Pilk with my microphone off. So nobody was able to get any of the material slightly before that. So we're doubling down. We're going to go ahead. We're going to drink a third glass. And, yeah. 4 would be right out, but I think we can manage 3. So once again, we're going to be doing that, and we're also going to be doing one of the other rewards for achieving our goal of $1,000 for Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. We are going to be opening 3 booster packs of TCG cards, and we're going to be ripping them in half. And so I do want to say this, and so this is really, really important, is that I am not doing this as any kind of protest, and I'm not doing this as any kind of commentary. The sole reason that I am doing this is because I reached a goal benefiting Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, and because I said I was going to do it, I'm going to do it. So, once again, thank you absolutely everybody who participated in the drive for our Autistic Self-Advocacy Network for Autism Awareness Month. And thank you, everybody over at Tiltify. You guys have been very, very good and very, very responsive when it comes to doing this pledge drive. You guys are terrific. You can count on me to do all my charity drives in the future. So let's go ahead. Let's head over to the main screen. And we're going to be doing Pilk Redo. All right, heading right over. So, like I said, I did just drink the Pilk, and yeah, so this glass already is already dirtied as a result of that. But we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pour it again. We're doing this for the views. We're doing this for the internet, and of course, we are doing this for Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. Very important charity, which helps to assist autistic individuals as still getting a fair shake in situations such as in public situations and work situations, and also political situations. So thank you for the wonderful work that you do, particularly recognized right now during Autism Awareness Month. Okay, so as I was saying before, and I was saying with the microphone off, that I'm pretty sure some people are going to make the accusation that the last time I filled this, I didn't put the soda in first, and so then I really wasn't going to have a problem drinking it. And so I now have that up to about half a cup, and so we're filling up this the rest of this mug up to the tippy top, other half worth of 2% milk. I think I was able to get whole milk last time. Spilled a little bit on the table. All right. And so you can see it swirling around on the glass in the middle there. So, okay, my mod, OS Devin, only just came in, and now he's clapping for me. I was indisposed in the water closet for a moment. Well, we had a little boo-boo. We actually did drink a glass of Pilk before, but we didn't have the microphone on. So this is actually glass of Pilk number 3. Yeah, I'm going to have to stop doing this. I might get to like it. And so, here we are. Skull. Okay. Once again, there's a glass emptied twice. I'm certainly feeling some effects, but it's really just the fact, I just have a whole lot of liquid in me right now. And Devin is saying this is a Chad moment. What I wouldn't give to not be a Chad right now. So this was a little bit hard to do because, once you get to that middle part of the glass, that's when this starts to get overwhelming, but not by much. It just starts to water down more than it has a combination of flavor. So, okay, and there's that. Yeah, once again, I probably belched last time, but also the microphone was off for that. Phew, bless you. Sometimes you're just glad when it ends. All right. Okay. So now we're going to get on to the second goal that we're going to do tonight. Here I have 3 Magic Dominaria Remaster cards. And so I've already said that I'm not doing this out of any kind of protest or any kind of political commentary. So I, as anybody who watches tonight's stream, knows quite well that I am an enormous fan of trading card games, tabletop games, and so on. But I am also a very strong believer in the creed that you always hurt the ones you love. Devin is pleading in the chat, please no rares, please no rares. Well, whatever is in these packs, I'm going to do everything I can, personally, not to get too attached. Okay. And so these are both draft boosters, so they do have slightly more cards than they potentially could. But I'm also not going to do this for set boosters, because we know for certain that the rare cards are always in set boosters. Okay. Goblin Turncoat, 2 black mana. Goblin Mercenary. Sacrifice a goblin. Regenerate Goblin Turncoat. The next time this creature would be destroyed, instead tap it, remove it from combat, and heal all damage in it. Okay. Alright. Kira-san Restorer, 3 green mana, human druid. Tap to untap a target land. Threshold, untap up to 3 target lands. Activate if only 7 or more cards are in your graveyard. I hate to think that, after a while I'm just going to get immediately tired and then I'm just not going to be able to rip the cards anymore. Okay. Subterranean Scout, 2 red mana Goblin Scout creatures. So this one hurts me personally because I've been trying to build a Goblin deck. When it enters the battlefield, target a creature with 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. Alright. I'm starting to get a little leverage on it. Leaden Fist, 3 blue mana, enchantment aura creature with flash. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3 and doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Say, oh, you've got milk voice, yeah. Me. I need to reach for my water bottle for a second. Nomad Decoy, 3 white mana, human nomad. Spend 1 mana to tap a target creature. Threshold, spend 2 mana and tap to tap 2 target creatures. Activate if only 7 or more cards are in your graveyard. Alright. Slippery Karst special land card. Easily pardoned. Okay. Duress, single black mana sorcery card. Target opponent reveals their hand. You can choose a non-creature, land card from it, and that player discards a card. Alright. Penumbra Bobcat, 3 green mana cat creature. When Penumbra Bobcat dies, create a 2/1 black cat creature tokens. Alright. Phyrexian Scudda, Phyrexian Zombie, pay 3 life as a kicker. When it's kicked, it enters the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters on it. Actually, would have been pretty good in the black deck. Would have been. Swords to Plowshare, single white mana instant card. Exile a target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. Alright. Squirrel Nest, 3 green mana enchantment. Enchant land. Enchanted land has tap to create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. Squirrels, always a popular deck type. Windborn Muse, 4 white mana spirit creature card with flying. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. Alright. So this is where we're getting into rare and potentially foil territory. So this is the part that you might want to avert your eyes from. This is a classic card. Impulse. 2 blue mana instant. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest of them in the bottom of your library in any order. Here is the foil. Flame Tongue Kavoo. 4 red mana Kavoo creature card. When Flamethrower Kavoo enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to the target creature. Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's time to say goodbye. Uh-oh. I might have to pull the scissors for the foil cards. Alright. Okay, Island Land. And Goblin Token. Okay, pack number 2. Say, what an awful, inhumane waste. Fadria Seer, 2 green mana human shaman card. Tap to draw a card, reveal it. If it isn't a land card, discard it. Cole Stoker, 4 red mana elemental creature card. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, add 3 red mana. What do the cards ever do to you? Nothing. We're doing this for the charity. Exclusively for the charity. Pacifism, 2 white mana, enchantment, aura card. Enchanted creature can attack or block. Pretty standard. Oven Eyes, 2 blue mana instant card until the end of the turn. Target creature loses all abilities and has base power and toughness of 0 and 1. Alright. Okay. Cackling Fiend, 4 black mana card, zombie creature. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. I've never really been one for black magic decks. Grape Shot, 2 red mana sorcery, deals 1 damage to any target. And Storm, when you cast a spell, copy it for each spell cast before its turn. You may choose new targets. Alright. Goblin Matron, 3 red mana goblin creature card. When it enters the battle, oh, we actually have another one of these. You don't often see repeats in, if you're only opening 3 booster packs, but we actually happen to see it this time. Okay. Ornithopter, 0 artifact creature thopter with flying. Pretty cheap flying card. Common card. Yeah, the majority of these are going to be common cards because this is a draft booster. It's the last 3 cards in every pack. That's what's going to be hard to part with. Okay. Terminal Moraine, special land card. Adds a neutral colorless land. I tend not to want to add neutral colorless land. Invigorating Boon, 2 green mana enchantment card. Whenever a player cycles a card, you can put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. Alright. Lightning Rift, 2 red mana enchantment. Whenever a player cycles a card, you can pay 1. If you do, Lightning Rift deals 2 damage to any target. Okay. Nature's Lore. Sorcery, search your library for a forest card. Put that card into a battlefield and shuffle. Okay. Lieutenant Qatar, this is the semi-rare. 3 white mana legendary creature, that's a bird soldier. With flying, use 1 mana and tap to sacrifice Lieutenant Qatar and exile a target attacking creature. Okay, here's the classic card. Mog War Marshal, 2 red mana Goblin Warrior with Echo. At the beginning of your upkeep, if this came under your control since the beginning of your last upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay an Echo cost. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 Goblin creature token. Oh, I could have used the cards for my Goblin deck. Okay, red basic mana. And this is just an ad card. Alright. So we're almost at the end of this debacle. Alright. Okay. It's pandemonium. Psychedelic pandemonium. Alright. I will break you, Batman. Okay, Savannah Lion, single white creature cat card with no ability. Urborg Uprising, 5 black mana sorcery card. Return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard into your hand and draw a card. Oh, I'm already revealing something. Yeah, there is definitely another foil in this pack. Symbiotic Beast, 6 green mana insect beast creature. When it dies, create 4 1/1 green insect creature tokens. Alright. Ember Beast, 3 red mana beast creature card. Ember Beast can attack or block alone. Alright. Impulse, 2 blue mana instant spell card. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put 1 of them into your hand and the rest of them in the bottom of your library in any order. Alright. Veiled Serpent, 3 blue mana enchantment. When an opponent casts a spell, a Veiled Serpent is an enchantment. Veiled Serpent becomes a 4/4 serpent creature with this creature can attack unless defending player controls an island. Alright. Mystic Zealot, 4 white mana human nomad mystic. With threshold, as long as 7 or more cards are in your graveyard, Mystic Zealot gets +1/+1 and has flying. Alright. Drifting Meadow, special land card. Okay. Venomancer, 3 blue creature human wizard. When it enters the battle, sacrifice. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless you turn 3 basic cards you control into their owner's hand. Return Ovomancer to its owner's hand. Destroy the target creature. It can't be regenerated. That creature's controller becomes a 0/1 green sheep creature token. Haven't seen many whole cloth sheep decks. So, this one is actually interesting. This is a red or a green assault and battery card. Assault says deals 2 damage to any target. Battery creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. See, maybe it'll still be illegal if I manage to shred it right in the middle. Storm Entity. 2 red mana creature elemental with haste. Storm Entity enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other spell cast this turn. Alright. Okay, here's the classic card. This is Overmancer, single red mana. The next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn can't be countered, and draw a card. Alright. Grape Shot. 2 red mana, sorcery. Grape Shot deals 1 damage to any target. And Storm. Okay, and so here's the foil card. Okay, Twisted Experiment, 2 black mana, enchantment aura. Enchant a creature gets a +3/+1. Well, it's a common, but it's a foil common. Island and Elephant Token. And that, my friends, is that. Look at me. You know, I opened a 3 packs of Magic, and I was able to produce twice as many cards as anybody who's ever opened a Magic Draft Booster before. OS Devon is saying it's a painful memory. Well, wait until you see the VOD. So, I can't wait for, somebody 2 or 3 years down the line actually find this VOD in my YouTube page, and they start to backlash at me. They start to say, oh my god, what have you done? And I say, well, it's in the past, It is literally something that I have committed to memory. It's something that I have left quite fervently in my past. But, like I said, that's for that future person, whatever his name is, in order to agonize over. Okie dokie. So, let's go ahead and let's get on to one of the positive things that this channel is known for. We're going to start reading the Book of Ebon Tides from Kobold Press. A 5e book from 5e Humble Bundle that I recently picked up. And this is going to be our first time reading it. Ebon Tides. What do you think I'm saying? You keep saying Ebon. Oh. Ebon Times. I can't help it. I think actually that's the Spanish. Because, I have it, there's a lot more hard E's in Spanish. But, yeah, the Book of Ebon Tides. All right. Let's go ahead and turn this off. Where did I put that? Okay. And then window capture. This one. Let me see. Okay, I've got it up now. Okay. You'll get it. It's wholly understandable. Okay, so here's a Book of Ebon Tides. A 5e by Wolfgang Bauer and Celeste Cernowich. I really, really love the art here. Designed by Wolfgang Bauer, Celeste Cernowich. Fantasy Grounds Digital Edition by Linda Booth. Additional design by Richard Green, Sarah Madsden, Kelly Pollock, Brian Seskind. Roll20 Digital Edition by Nick Bradley. Development and editing by Scott Gable. Shard Tabletop Digital Edition by Hal Harward. Proofreading by Jim Quick. Director of Digital Growth by Blaine McNutt. Alright. Cover artist is Marcel Mercado. Editorial director is Thomas M. Reed. Interior artist George Johnstone, Mike Pape, David Allen Nash, William O'Brien, Roberto Pituru, Addison Rankin, Kiki Moshriziki, Floridian Stilts, Brian Syme, Eagle Thompson, and Alexander Yakolev. Director of Operations, T. Alexander Stangroom, Stage Manager Kim Weiler, Community Manager Victoria Rogers, Cartography by John Pintar, Samantha Sandine Spencer, Twitch Producer Chelsea.Stevenson, Graphic Design by Mark Radel, Twitch Producer Chelsea.Stevenson, layout by Mark Radel. Okay, yeah, he did do both of those. I just didn't repeat myself. The publisher, Wolfgang Baur, and the additional layout by Amber Seeger. A special thanks to the designers and contributors to earlier printing of some material that appears in this book, but including but not limited to Wolfgang Baur and Dan Dillon. And a special thanks to the 207706 backers who made this volume possible. All right. There we go. What is... Oh, there we go. Twitch was being funny. Yeah, I do see just like 0.1% of drop frames there. Let's see. The maps in this book include a Fey village, a Shadow Road, a stretch of the River Styx, and other areas of the Twilight Shades and native flora, emblematic of the Shadow Realm. These maps can be used for any encounter on the plane to enhance its shadowy atmosphere and Fey landscapes. On the cover, a Bearfolk Druid and a Shadow Fey Rogue stand before a Whirring Stone, safeguarding a changeling baby on their travels through the shadowy forest in the Ark by Marcel Mercado. Okay. So, let's see. Table of contents. Introduction. Pitter patter, run, 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 child. Dive beneath the shadows now, or seek shelter in the trees. It will avail you nothing. The Shadow Fae are coming, with their bounds and their arrows and their bright silver spears. Though you be the canniest fox or the swiftest hawk, they will find you and bring you to their dark queen. Woven deep in her shadow cart, run, child, run. Find your shelter and hold still as death. The Shadow Fae are coming. Shadow is everything and nothing. It is gloom and delight. If you try to seize it, it ripples away laughing. So yes, the plane of shadows is an uncertain place, which makes it a very difficult place to define and capture in maps and descriptions, in known quantities or certainties. Everyone knows that the demonic creatures of the hells are vile and secure in their malice. Likewise, the shining angels of the celestial halls are unyielding in their eternal pilgrimage for righteousness and law. These realms are well known and understood. The one is bright and the other Stygian. The creatures of shadow are far less defined and far more flexible, and no less dangerous for all that. Even their language, umbral, is a fluid thing, full of double meanings and wordplay. They resist definitions, but their malleable, quicksilver nature defines them. You should always trust the word of an angel. Rarely given, but given with certainty. The word of a shadow creature, however, is given quickly and easily, but broken just as readily. Creatures of the Shadow Realm are like unto shadows themselves, flickering and shifting with the sun and moon changing and moving, and their realm is also a place of frequent change, including the violent overthrow of courts and dynasties, and the slow erosion of plains by the shifting Ebon Tides. Ebon Tides, drifting like sandbars or vanishing like a hillside after the rain. The book explores the Shadow Realm and attempts to define it as understood by its inhabitants, its people and their gods, magic, and the distinctive way it works in the world, and even the monsters, nations, and great cities of the Shadow Realm are all defined here. Perhaps defined a bit more than the inhabitants themselves would be, for they prefer to slip always from one definition to another, to a slightly more favorable one, as the mood strikes them. Welcome to the Shadow Realm. Its high-flown powers and its low-born scoundrels alike have a proposal for you. Swear your sword and wands to their cause, and shift the Ebon Tides in their favor. Join us in the shadows. Wolfgang Baur, Kirkland, Washington, November 2021. The overview and history. For such a vast realm, surprisingly little is known about the Plane of Shadow, often also called the Shadow Realm. Herewith, a short process and overview for those who have not previously drunk deep of its twilight power. The whole plane is often described as a distortion and a shadow of the mortal realm, and certainly there are resemblances as any shadow resembles its source and origin, and dark reflections and mirrored echoes are frequent enough. No shadow exists without a light and a source, after all. At the same time, parts of the Shadow Realm are distinct unto the plane itself, especially those portions worked by Shadow Fae, goblins, bearfolk, humans, and Dracul as their realms and their kingdoms. These places have been shaped by magic, as creatures manipulated the raw material of shadow into lands and settlements that pleased our makers. Great mages and clerics bend the land and the structures upon it into new forms, and the Shadow Realm itself often alters its own shape and direction in unpredictable ways. Very lovely art. So this is an extremely well illustrated book, and so it's interesting to see this, coming off of 2 books in a row that still basically used monochromatic black and white art, which I've already said has its advantages. But, it's interesting to see some really well-made fantasy art as well. Elements of Shadow. Here are the elements of the Shadow Realm covered in this volume. Overview of the Shadow Realm's nature and travel. A short history of what the Shadow Realm is, how it became an inhabited plane, and various questions of its lore. Umbral people and hero. The people of the Shadow Realm are surprisingly many for such a strange plane. Shadow Fae and Darkhold find it congenial, as do Sable Elves, Weird Gnomes, Bear Folk, Shadow Goblins, Umbral Humans, and even the small arena and Alised are commonly found in deep forests. With relatively few cities and wide stretches of wilderness, the Shadow Realm is not a place of great kingdoms, but rather small settlements and fiefdoms, loosely bound to charismatic kings and queens. The various people and heroes of the Shadow Realm can be found in Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. Shadow Magic, a discussion of the nature of Umbral magic plus new spells of illumination, trickery, and shadow. Chapter 4 also includes all new Fae magic and bits of weather magic and an expansion of the School of Dooms. Land, water, and shadow walking. The Shadow Realm itself is best known to mortals through the Shadow Roads, the shortcuts the Fae take from one place to another through shadows. These roads have their own rituals, guardians, and mysteries, as described in Chapter 5. This chapter also includes a discussion of the Black River Styx and some other hazards. Shadow Realm and the Courts of the Fae. The Shadow Realm is ruled by undead, Fae, and a scattered group of their allies and friends. They create regions where the shadow stuff of the plane is relatively stable, where crops grow and magic flows normally, and where the roads are stable. The realms of the Fae are described in Chapter 6, and the realms of the Bearfolk, Dracul, Shades, and Humans in Chapter 7. Umbral Pantheon. Some gods of the Shadow Realm are familiar to mortals, though many have slightly different features, and they rely more on Shadow Goblins and Shadow Fae than the human pantheons do. Bangta, the Bear Maiden, is a power here, and so is Alaros, clearly a form of Bastet, and Heket and Sharon. Additionally, minor godlings rise and fall with some frequency, including the enemy sainthood through the devotion of their followers and twilight magic. Of course, it must be noted that demon lords and dark gods are common here, often gathering great power for a time. Vardisian and Alquem both have large followings, as does a distinct form of Loki. All of these can be found in detail in Chapter 8. Shadow creatures of monsters of the Shadow Realm, excluding quicksteps and Fae, sorcerers, as well as undead, exquisite rose golems, birch simons, and other oddities from the Shadow Forest, and Quicksilver Marshes are provided in Chapter 9. Encounter tables in the appendix. Umbral magic items and tricks. The best known Umbral magic items often focus on shapeshifting, radiance, and illusion, shadow magic, and shadow warping. You'll find related Fae magic such as memory filters, illusions, seas, and road magic. Spells related to these are described in Chapter 4. Magic items and the gear and equipment most commonly found in the Umbral lands are found in Chapter 10. A brief history of Shadow. The Shadow Realm has existed for as long as the mortal world has. It's a place of shadows where twilight rules, and its various peoples hold close their nefarious plans and draw power from the dark while avoiding its corruption and the identity-draining waters of the afterlife. As a place of mortals mixed with minor planar powers, it has been congenial to the Quicksilver Fae, the nihilistic stare at ambitious humans willing to leave sunlit and wholesome lands for a more malleable, more dangerous, and more powerful realm. The making of the Shadow Plane. In the Shadow Realm, the world is what you make it, and the first great power to discover this was not one of the Fae, but Heket, the goddess of the moon. Most natives of the plain and most visitors think of Shadow as a land of reasonably well-fixed or at least solid plains and forests, and yet it is not always so, for Hecate found it as an ocean of light and darkness, a morass of radiance beams, trickling shadow mires, and undulating chaotic hills and waves. As is the way of a goddess of moon and magic, she first conjured a place for herself to stand by making a stone with radiant runes, and thus inventing the use of foundation stones. Then she brought the tides to still the water, to make them flow and echo rather than crash and storm. The hymns praising Hecate in every one of her temples in the Shadow Realm refer to her as she who steadied the tides, and she is indeed the maker and founder and inhabitation. And she is indeed the maker and founder of inhabitation of the plane. Sometimes you lose a sentence and you never recover it. To make room for her followers among the Fae and humans, she conjured white birch groves, tall red pines on the hills, and moonstones. The water she diverted into gentle ponds and deep lakes to reflect her glory. When it was to her liking, she shared the plain with her most dutiful followers among the goblins, shadow fae, some exiles from the elflands, and then the bear folk and a few night-loving humans. Over time, more and more of the land became solid. All around the shores, even now, the shadow has no end, a roiling ocean of raw chaos and deepest night leavened with moonlight. The Shadow Realm is still very much a place of arcane dreams and shapelings, where forms and thoughts flow like water, where nothing lasts forever, where dark tides carry away towns and mountains, where skill and kindness win over brute strength or cruelty, except of course for those days and nights when everything changes and dissolves back into mystery, and new lights shine to please new shapers. So, this has been really interesting. This has been a very interesting read so far for a very fundamental reason, is that since we finished reading the first 100 pages of The Blight, Richard Pratt's Crooked City from Frog God Games, we were in a realm that was mostly predicated on the belief in pagan gods, including, one character that was literally the, significantly the Christian entity that we know as Lucifer. In this book, everything is predicated on fairy myth. The goddess Hecate does play pretty substantially into that. And just about everything else in that is probably going to be dealing with, some very classic myth. I'm looking to see the Seelie and the Unseelie Court of Avalon. I'm looking to see if there is a section of roleplay that has to do with the Fae tricking you into telling you their name, and just anything of the like. And so we're going to see how well this delves into the ancient myth of the Seelie and Unseelie Courts of Avalon. Okay, early visitors. The power of the Shadow Realm has always drawn the ambitious and the striving, sometimes just for a season, long enough to master a few useful secrets, but others have come and stayed. Hecate is widely acknowledged as she who invented the first visitors, though some claim a more ancient race once made their home in the realm. She brought the Shadow Fae here, and then the Sable of Elves came. In both of those Fae groups brought servitor races. In the case of the Shadow Fae, there were Shadow Goblins, humans, and gnomes. In the case of the Sable Elves, they were court folk, halflings, arena, and occasionally all seeds, quick steps, and various sprites and pixies. The land was soon overrun with Fae courts and kingdoms in a distant time that both sides referred to as the first flowering of shadow. I don't know much about that, but it sounds neat, yeah. So the first time I ever heard about this, it actually came from a video game. It came from King's Quest VII, and they really only touched on it close to the end. Because, it just so happened that, an established canon character that they had in King's Quest was the son of the fairy king and queen, Oberon and Titania, who Oberon I also believe, is featured in a Shakespeare play. And as it so happens, we're going to be reading a Shakespeare play later. I believe that's A Midsummer Night's Dream, and so that's a very good contender for the Shakespeare play that I'm going to be reading. The Shadow Fae and the Servitors, Scathicide or Shadow Fae, will always be quick to tell you that they were the first to arrive in the realm. They do not usually mention the reason why. They broke with the elves of the Summer Lands in pursuit of power and found it in the land Hecate showed them. Their understanding and mastery of the realm goes back to a time exceeding recorded history, though their numbers have never been great. Indeed, they brought with them the elven custom of employing servitor races as their eyes, ears, and hands in remaking and ruling the Shadow Realm, where the elves retained halflings, humans, bearfolk, Alseid, and gnomes. The Shadowfae servitors were somewhat different. Gnomes, more precisely, the most distinguished of arcanists, the weird gnomes, certainly retain influence among the Shadowfae. Also goblins, which come with the Shadowfae and became attuned to moonlight magic and fae trickery, and the humans who serve are relatively numerous, especially in the cities and the companies of umbral human settlements. A very lovely Dark Realm illustration there. It virtually looks as though it's in its own page. I just went back and did a double take that, just to that effect. You can get them as Persona and Persona 5 Royal. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is really just the interpretation of very ancient, fairy tales. There's really no other way to put it. These are quite literal fairy tales. Many humans have come to the Shadow Realm as servants or dupes of the Shadowfae, and some have fallen into the realm by misadventure, straying from a shadow road. Most, however, descend from those who sought the place out to acquire power, study magic, or escape troubles of their own. This is the foundation of the cities and baronies ruled and inhabited by humans. Umbral humans, as they are called, are often considered ambitious, greedy, or slightly treacherous compared to the more reliable servants, like goblins and gnomes. Dracul and the other undead, not surprisingly, the Dracul, with their hatred of daylight in the mortal world, found the Shadow Realm almost pleasant, and they established a new empire. Their emperor here rules a greater and far more populated region of undead, with ties to Evermaw and to the portal empire of ghouls. Undead dragons, their unhatched wormlings, and Lich Kings are part of the Twilight Empire, and the Dracul are among the greatest rivals to the Shadowfae in their courts. Their realms in Shadow also host a much higher number of shades than those found elsewhere. The Bearfolk came to Shadow not because they were drawn to its power, but because others were. The Shadow Chewers are said to have first pursued Shadowfae into the darkness and found their planar bolt hole. The people of Midgard. The Shadow Realm has many useful connections to the Midgard campaign setting. The people of the Midgard Crossroads, Moragu and Nuria, have found their way into the Shadow Realm, as did a surprising number of the people of the Magocracies after the Mage Wars, the Bearfolk as a whole, and the splinter faction of the Ghoul Empire. Likewise, the Troll King share an ancient bond of blood with creatures who dwell in shadow, and the Elves of Arbanese walk secret paths lead beyond the material world. However, most of the people of Midgard know little or nothing of the Shadow Realm, other than it is, quote, a place of elves and hostile fae, or similar. They have enough worries with the everyday dangers of Midgard to avoid seeking out additional magical realms. Bear folks, splinter factions, ghoul kings, oh my. The Bearfolk soon realized the war against the undead and the Shadowfae would never succeed unless they could at least understand the Shadow Realm. In time, the vast druids, rangers, and other Bearfolk visitors to the Shadow Realm built settlements full of light, built warding stones, and grew entire circles of moonlit oaks, gathering the strength of their intimate understanding of darkness to prevent evil from ruling the shadows without rivals. The Moonwells, the Groves, and the mere presence of the Bearfolk have all given the Shadow Realm places of refuge. Minor races, Trollkin, Ravenfolk, Alseid, Arena, Quicksteps, and others arrived in the Shadow Realm by many paths and in much smaller numbers than those races listed above. Shades are relatively well known, though few in numbers, and the verminous Satar are often found seeking to unravel the plane by various acts of sabotage. Ratatas seem to enjoy the company of elves, bearfolk, and gnomes, and are sometimes visitors in their cities and settlements. Hobgoblins arrived often as mercenaries or leaders among the shadow goblins. Least commonly, occasionally one can find gnolls in the realm. Generally servants of the gods of death such as Anu Akema and Subek Tusculi, orcs, dragonborn, and even catfolk, often on some pilgrimage for Hecate and Aeloros. Aasimar and tieflings visit as planar travelers, but are considered strangers and never natives of the plane. Connections to the mortal world. The Shadow Realm is connected to the mortal world primarily by the Shadow Roads well known to geomancers, elves, and the Shadow Fae as arcane connections and Fae portals. While most travelers using such roads desire nothing more than to move swiftly through shadow to their destination, they sometimes grow lost or are tempted to leave the known path in pursuit of some vision, treasure, or refuge just off the road. Once they step off the Shadow Road, they are in the Shadow Realm itself, and the less skilled or less magically adept find it difficult to return to the path, and so they remain in the Shadow Realm. Connections to other spheres are a bit less common. They fall into three rough categories: rituals and summoning, the roots of Yggdrasil, and cities fallen into shadow. So, if we ever had problems pronouncing a single word, I'm pretty sure there's a standard pronunciation for Yggdrasil. And I'm saying it Yggdrasil, but I'm not entirely sure about that. Rituals and summoning. Rituals can summon creatures from the Shadow Realm, and powerful casters in the Shadow Realm can summon mortals there. For samples of this magic, see Chapter 4 and the Shadow Portal scroll in Chapter 10. In a few cases, a caster deliberately warps a Shadow Walk spell or brings a glamour to travelers on a Shadow road to bring them deeper into shadow. Most creatures brought into shadow this way arrive against their will, so getting back to the mortal world becomes their primary motivation. The shadow roots of Yggdrasil. The world trees that climb up to the celestial realms and to distant spheres are also sometimes have a hollow sections of trunk that lead down to Yggdrasil's roots, passing through the Shadow Realm on the way. Devin is providing me a pronunciation. Yggdrasil. Okay. While this superficially seems similar to taking a shadow road to the approaches, entering the roots of Yggdrasil takes one out of the mortal realm and into a twisting set of interplanar passageways that end up in various hells. Planes of the undead, ghostly afterlives of brooding northern pantheons, and other dark realms at the root of the world tree. If one is not wise in the ways of the planes, it's possible to enter planes entirely unrelated to the Shadow Realm, which tends to cling close to the mortal plane. Exactly how one steps aside to the shadow is a crucial skill known to the Troll King. Bear folk, raven folk, and gnomes, among others, who often use the world tree for this purpose. Other races, including humans, goblins, Dracul, and the Shadow Fae, avoid this method of moving between planes. Cities in shadow. Multiple cities have fallen into the Shadow Realm over the years, starting with Coromel in the days of the Gods' War, and later the city of Oshragora and parts of the Twilight Empire. Cities leak into the human god kings and the lich kings of the undead princes seem especially prone to this, and most cities fall into shadow because a mortal caster draws so much power from the Shadow Realm that it completely consumes them and everything around them, literally pulling the place out of the mortal world through the sheer hold that the shadow corruption has on the place. In the case of Coromel, the process has left a distinct set of links between the city of Coromel in light, as those in the Shadow Realm refer to its rebuilt counterpart in the mortal world, and the city of Coromel in shadow, ruled by Shadow Fae on the Dark River and described in Chapter 6. The border planes. They're talking about planes of existence, as opposed to, just normal nature planes. Otherwise I think I would be with you when it comes to that. If the overall alignment is thrown out of whack, an entire era can be sucked into a neighboring plane of that alignment. Yeah, precisely. So, The Stones of the Ancients from the Book of Ebon Tides. Some ancient sagas and fragments of an early script found on strange foundation stones mention the Yagar, a race of river giants who control the plane before the Shadow Fae, but whose attempts to tame the tides ultimately failed. Some driftstone islands of theirs remain, but sometimes wash up on the saltwood stand, or less often a goblin explorer and fisherman will find the ruins at sea. From time to time, mad prophets and keen arcane divinations, known only to the Shadow Fae, reveal a whole city or region of empty roads, crumbled keeps, or echoing hills inhabited by a few gaunt giants who seem to know nothing of any earlier age of glory. The greatest of those lost lands was Oldoran, said to be anchored around a grove of golden apples and a bright, white power tomb of the last of the giants' wizards. Many goblins will happily sell you a map and a boat to get there. Alright. A land of Ebon Tides. When learning about the Shadow Realm, the first element that must be addressed is not the people of the realm, but the mutable land itself. Most people of the mortal world think of the ground, the forests, and the mountains as permanent, and we think of shadows and light as transitory, and they are usually, except when some bright eternal fire wells up from the deep earth, or some cavern remains shrouded in darkness for eons. In the Shadow Realm, shadows are eternal, while lands and rivers are, if not entirely transitory, notably less certain than they are in the mortal lands. In the lands of the Shadow Fae and the bear folk of the sable elves and weird gnomes, the forests walk, and the mountains wander from time to time. It happens slowly enough that few notice it before their eyes, but over days and weeks when the tides shift, the land itself shoves rivers and even cities some distance from their usual and well-accustomed sites. These ripples in the land themselves are called the Ebon Tides, the stretches and compressions in reality that shadow folk know and plan for. Any survey map is useful for a season or sometimes for a lifetime, at least if that lifetime is not overlong. Hills can crumble quickly, exposed to eroding moonlight and washed out to sea. Harbors silt up and forests quiver and rearrange themselves around riverbeds that dance slowly, ever so slowly, like liquid clocks shifting first one way and then another. The Shadow Realm drives cartographers a bit mad, and it guarantees that their work is constant. The road wardens work hard to ensure that the Shadow roads stay open, connecting the castles, towns, and settlements in a familiar way, even as details change year after year. Change is relentless among the shadows, but certain elements of this plane remain fixed, true, and certain. These fixed elements, the landmarks, major cities, headlands, and elder rivers, hold true to one another, bound together first by the shadow roads, and later by all three tools of oak, road, and stone. Some ancient roads shift just one grain of sand in a century, for the roads themselves have binding properties. Some towers keep a forest in their orbit. Some windswept plains retain their slow rise and chosen distant hills. The rangers and wanderers, the wise women, and the unnerving elves know their way from place to place. For others, for visitors, or those foolish enough to anger a geomancer, the plane and its movements are a constant struggle. Drifting towers and cities. While some things are clearly anchored, other cities are unmoored by roads or forests. The most famous of these unmoored locales is Oshragora, the city of psychic vampires and dark deeds, said to have once been a kingdom of wizards or a region so overrun with magic that it became a magical wasteland. In either case, it was pulled entirely into the Shadow Realm by its corruption and by improvident magic. The city has never had a road to elsewhere in the Shadow Realm, for the vampires who inhabit it seem unable to build one, and they have never placed foundation stones for their buildings or planted earthbound trees to hold it down. Thus the city drifts slowly across the land, sometimes near the forest of the Shadow Fae, other times near the town of Wormwood, and occasionally near the dark, cool pits. Some claim that this serves the vampire's will, for it brings them always to new places where fresh victims might live. Drifting courts. Drifting courts. Other famous drifting locales include the Court of Wine and Roses, built before the use of foundation stones was understood, and the Lost Court of the Triple Moon, said to have been built with a luminous tower that outshone the true moons and stars with a silver arcane light. The Court of Wine and Roses seems entangled in the southern forest and is not difficult to find if one knows roughly where to seek. The court of the Triple Moon has not been seen in centuries, and was likely unmade by the Lord of the Hunt or one of the other darker Fey Lords. Maps purporting to show a path to Lost Courts are a common gift by the more unscrupulous Shadow Goblins and Shadow Fey with visitors to the realm. The Driftwood Villages, sometimes a single black oak tree or a cherry orchard or a stand of birches, drifts away from the rest of the realm, taking nearby homes with it and becoming a sort of wandering village. When this happens to famous cities like Ashragora, everyone notices, but smaller settlements sometimes fade into the plains or even part from the seashore and are not seen again for many years. For most of them, the village needs a new road to bind them to their neighbors and re-establish trade. Others seem to thrive without the burden of gifts to the Fae or the Trolls or the Darkwool. Several of these freeholds are well known and seen every few years in the plains as a river island or elsewhere. The most famous include the fishing village of Willow Song, the woodworkers' hamlet of Rowan's Heart, the cheesemakers' hilltop of Perivale, the druids' retreat of Owlbridge, and the shepherds' village of Cloverfield. They are never marked on maps, for they never connected to a road. Oak, Road, and Stone. The peoples of this realm have harnessed 3 enchanted tools to keep land stable and build their realms to withstand shifts in the Ebon Tides. These are the trinity of Oak, Road, and Stone, the 3 elements that combine shadow landscapes into a fixed form. The rich forest, first raided by Hecate and later planted by the Shadow Fae and Bearfolk, and more recently by the Darkwool, hold land together, allowing for farming, building, and hunting in regions that surround the forested lands. Their roots and branches seem to always study the land around them. These roads are used to bind places to one another, so that they do not drift apart and become separated lands with the sea between them. Building new roads of fine flagstone, or making roads with milestones and guideposts, or simply cutting through the deep brush of a wide birch forest, all bind together the communities and peoples of the land. Road building and road warding are both quite honorable professions. Further, glyph-marked foundation stones are also carved and enchanted with a particular radiance to make the basis of any permanent structure. These build a structure such as a wall, tower, or bridge to a place, keeping huts, castles, and palaces from moving if the shadow landscape should be drawn in one direction or another. Natives of the Shadow Realm use this as an invocation and exclamation by Oak, Road, and Stone, because they know the importance of maintaining them in order to keep the realm whole. Destroying any of them is considered an act of chaos at the very least, as it unravels the habitable regions and makes navigation even more difficult than normal. Cutting roads, chopping down more timber than the druids permit, or defacing foundations of stones are crimes all among the civilized races, though they are also considered a form of sport or entertainment by the more chaotic and feral fae of the realm. Shadow roads. The shadow roads were the first tool used by natives of the Shadow Realm to keep settlements from drifting apart. One might say that their creation made the settlement of the plane by the Fae possible, for without them the courts could never find one another easily or consistently, and each new court would remain isolated. This also explains why the Shadow Fae, Shadow Goblins, Bearfolk, humans, and even the Darkwool spend considerable effort to patrol and maintain the Shadow roads. They also go out each spring to walk the roads, repairing any fallen milestones, checking on bridges, restoring weak enchantments, and so forth. I'd live there, sure. I mean, I could try. The one thing I haven't really heard mention is probably whether or not there are very many, if any, humans around here. However, tricksters and evildoers often work against the roads, hoping to either carve a road of their own or deny an enemy the use of one. If a shadow road is cut by terrain-shifting magic, or by the simple muscle-powered expedient of digging a ditch or tearing up stones, the 2 locations that road connects on the plane become unmoored. While the ends of the cut road may bend and curl and reconnect by happenstance or with arcane help, if the cut road is not addressed, it fades back into the mire and muck of unformed shadow or sinks into the earth, leaving no sign of its presence, and this means the places it once connected drift apart. Creating a new road, to pave a new shadow road, or even to mark it out with milestones and cross roads is a work of many hands. These roads are generally divided into 3 parts: the survey, the laying of stones, and the building of points. The survey. To begin the work, a surveyor, often a wizard or cleric, takes silver chains, theodolite, and a notebook to the foundation stone where the road is meant to begin. This is often a crossroads to a new path, or an informal forest path, a trail in the tall grass, or a muddy stretch of river or hills that has been useful for a long enough period that the inhabitants will pay for a more permanent stretch of road to be mapped out. This survey involves putting down silver markers, measuring the current position of all curves, turns, and crossroads, and often leading a long thread, or in the case of more ambitious roads, a bit of thin silver chain to mark the path that the road is meant to take. The making of the first roads from the Book of Ebon Tides. Like those who seek to build a new road, I know that the construction of the first shadow roads is attributed to Hargan the Builder, a Gnomish engineer and surveyor. This bearded arcanist learned to fix shadow matter with rune-marked milestones, carefully enchanted paving stones, and celestially inspired geometry. The task has since become rote, using theodolite, lead weights, and measuring chains. I send a road builder to mark out a course, place milestones in the key points, such as curves, hills, and bridges, and seed the whole with a well-seasoned course of moonstones and silver fillings. To bind it, I command a priest to invoke the blessing of Hecate and the road gods, calling down the deep roots of the moon. In terms of the cost of the lords and ladies, each mile in separate terrain requires at least 100 gold points and as much as a month's work to build, and almost as much to maintain, and 5 or even 10 times that in marsh, hills, or deep forests. The expense eats at our treasury. The laying of stones. Once the course is plotted, time becomes critical. The road's grasses, trees, and swampy patches must be addressed with a traditional gravel fill, flagstones over a roadbed, a rumbling way of wooden slats, making for a jarring route of wagons and carts, or simply the clearing of brush and the erection of markers, waypoint stones, and guide poles to show the way. This work is usually done by shadow goblin or hobgoblin gangs when the road is a new one for the Fae, or by young bearfolk, arena, and even molefolk if the road is meant to connect bearfolk lands. The binding of points. The last step is the arcane one that binds the foundation stones, the silver filings, and a crumble of prayers and chunks of opal or moonstone into the road, by making it impervious to destruction by the slow warping of the Ebon Tides. The shadow road can still stretch, bend, warp, and turn to accommodate the drift of the 2 or more points that its binding ritual mentions. The ritual is most often performed by shadow Fae clerics of Hecate together with the shadow goblin mooncatchers and moon priests of various kinds, though in recent years the binding has also become an important facet of the rise of the bearfolk, whose druids understand its depths and its difficulties, and even the dark hole, whose building involves a bit more bone and blood and a bit less moon and silver. Life of a shadow road. Once a binding is complete, the road remains until destroyed or unbound. In some cases, the shadow roads are a little more than forest trails, connecting a village or standing stones to a larger settlement. At other times, the road is entirely paved and remains so even when the relative positions of various settlements change, or when new hills, forests, or rivers cut through the land. The road itself is a living thing, and it can and does stretch to accommodate changes in the shadow terrain. Note that various void cults and the Sitar have often attempted to build Ashragora into the larger realm by such a road, but so far all such attempts have been thwarted by either the Fae or the Bearfolk. The prospects of binding it to the greater shadow realm seem ill-omened at best. Road worship. Some shadow roads are sites of worship associated with ancient gods that predate the arrival of the Fae. So these roads are called pilgrim roads or old paths, and they include some of the oldest, best warded, and most revered roads of the realm, including the road from Fandival to the Court of Night and Shadow, and the small stretch from the Hawthorn Grove to the city of Solvheim, which is built on the ruins of an ancient Fae court. The shrines themselves often combine a small pantheon, and with the old roads worshipped next to Hecate, Sharun, and sometimes Bengta or Ailarus, they become a little bit more than a small stone or tile roof cabinet at the side of a road or a small cave that provides shelter. Some resemble a shepherd's hut or an especially convenient boulder or cliffside. Offerings include worn-out boots and sandals, candles, and similar objects. Forest anchors. Forest anchors are a way to secure a region filled with streams, villages, and other scattered landmarks from going adrift. Most trees are able to grow in the Shadow Realm, also hold the land together, though not in the same way that the roads do. Forests are less like a cord binding two places that float on the Ebon Tides and more like a mat of reeds or kelp, keeping a larger area calmer, disturbed only by great storms, and moving as a single unit. A great forest might be said to float on the Ebon Tides, but it drifts with all its trees, courts, castles, villages, streams, and everything else with them, an island. For this reason, even the Darkwool plant their strange crackling forests and similar structures. Spells such as Hallucinatory Terrain and Mirage Arcane can be used to generate forest lands that will hold for longer than usual in the Shadow Realm, 3 days rather than 24 hours for hallucinatory terrain, and a month rather than 10 days for Mirage Arcane. Bearfolk, Druids, and Priests of Hecate can lock in the results of such spells to create new Shadowlands within the deep roots of the moon spell. Foundation Stones. Fortunately, courts, castles, and villages can be built to withstand the ebb and tides rather than being shifted or cracked by the Earth's slow movement. This requires the use of the Radiant Foundation Stones, enchanted stone pilings marked with the elements of a daylight or darkness spell, and used either as single stones under the floor for a hut, tavern, or small barn, or in sets of 2 or 4 more stones at the corners for a large inn, manor house, or a great chapter house or keep, or even more for many towered castles, large monasteries, great courtyard homes, or cloisters and arcane colleges. Breaking a small foundation stone requires a shatter spell, or 20 points of bludgeoning damage. Breaking a medium-sized foundation stones requires a dimension door spell, or 50 points of bludgeoning damage. Breaking a large one requires a disintegrate spell, or 150 points of bludgeoning damage. In all cases, when a foundation stone crumbles, creatures within the structure feel a quivering, shaking motion for a moment, like a small earthquake. Shadow Realm in motion. How does a group of travelers know when the black tides are running and when the forces of shadow are warping the mountains, rivers, and roads? There are many common signs, all well known to natives of the Shadow Realm. They may indicate a small realignment of a nearby crack or the vast shaft of an entire set of grasslands, or the motion of a village or city that has come unmoored from the road or forest. The following list is useful for satisfying an ebb and tide. Reading the shift, a successful DC 14 wisdom check by a member of the party or guide will confirm how far and in what direction the Shadow Realm is shifting. On a failure, the party becomes lost for at least a full day of travel. A new check may be made the following day as new landmarks come into view. This ability check is made with advantage if the party is traveling on the Shadow Road. 5 high holidays. Oh, well, hang on. Before I read that, where is the Shadow Realm? While some sidebars in the volume refer to the mortal realm as Midgard, the choice of which planes are close by are entirely up to the GM. It could be a Polish campaign world that you especially enjoy, or a setting entirely of your own creation. The gloom in the fixture of the plane of the shadow does, after all, reach any place where light and darkness mingle. As a GM, you can make room for the Shadow Fae and the Shadow Roads next to any existing campaign. On a failure, with 5 high holidays of Shadow. With several major and distinct cultures spread across the Shadow Realm, it's rare that holidays are celebrated in all places the same way. However, 5 main holidays are quickly acknowledged by most in some way, or at least according to some level of a polite observance. They're all described here. The Twin Moon Festival, all peoples of the Shadow Realm rely on the twin moons for the night, seasons, and harvest, and the occasion of the twin full moon of both Celeste and Lindor is always cause for a celebration of life, hope, and radiant feasting. The Shadow, Fae, Goblins, and Bearfolk strive to outdo each other in celebrations with bonfires and dances. Humans and Dracul are less keen but observe the day's events, usually a torchlight procession through a settlement to the fields or a shrine of Hecate, followed by a short blessing and then a celebratory feast featuring some sweet cakes. Okay, I am going to need to take a break because, drinking those 2 full glasses of Pilk has finally caught up with me. I will be back, just probably in about 10 minutes, and then, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to read to the end of the stream. So, thank you very much for staying tuned in. I'll be back as quickly as I can. This is Brainy the RPG Cat. Stay tuned. Okay, I'm back. So, this is our first table in the book. This is the Ebon Tide Manifestation, a D10 chart. On a 1, strange chatter in the wind and voices appear just out of hearing. 2, currents under stone and the sound of water far from any river. 3, echoes of the past, ghostly figures, forests, even cities appear and disappear. 4, the black wind, a bit like a very thick fog, reducing vision to 30 feet. 5, rolling earth like a mild earthquake or the presence of an earth elemental, and terrain spins or tilts. 6, shadow trembling, all light and shadow seems to quiver, as if someone is shaking the moon. 7, sound echoes through the sky, feeling like half a crashing wave, half the banging of a massive gong. 8, shadow thickening, all shadows in the region grow more dense and make terrain difficult for an hour. 9, a new radiant well opens nearby, casting a beam of light into the sky. Actually, that was 9. And then 10 is a blaze of light pausing through the party like a wave, blinding everyone for one round. Devin is saying, welcome back. Yes, thank you very much. So if you were to live in the realm of Ebon Tides, these things, this D10 table right here, this would be what the weather looks like. Just fair warning. The double dark blessing. When both moons are new and raw, and the darkness covers the plain, the dark gods and their cults celebrate, as do many evil spirits, haunts, and shades. The festival is celebrated with cold wines in Suraglass, and with fiery offerings in the temples of Charun, Alkam, and Anu Akma. Elsewhere, it is celebrated in much darker fashions with blood and bone and with animal sacrifices. The river soul harvest. When the river Styx crests above its usual height, the priests of Charun often declare a river soul harvest, when moonlight nets and silver hooks are used to fish various items from the waters, and some daring followers of the boatmen ask for a sprinkling of river water, all to provide good fortune for months to come. Fish, oysters, clams, and seaweed are common feast foods and offerings. The celebration is especially well marked by the shadow goblins of Fandival, although others partake as well, if only for a bit of witchlight or enchanted flotsam to brighten one's home. Marsh Mustering Witchlight Day. Popular among children near any marsh or body of water, the marsh mustering is said to have begun as a rite of the King of Toads, an old Fey lord otherwise largely neglected. Held in spring, when the marshes are active with water birds, the druids encourage the pursuit of marsh creatures by the young. A godly catch of active, healthy frogs, dragonflies, witchlights, and other creatures is an omen of the good harvest to come. Cakes and candles made in the shape of stars, frogs, and ducks are often part of the celebration, along with squared eggs and sweets made with marsh roots. And the Feast of All Souls, celebrated primarily by humans, goblin, and bearfolk. The Feast of All Souls is a remembrance and memorial for the dead, when grave goods are offered at various graveyards and burial grounds, and candles burn in vast numbers in memory of the departed. For some Shadow Fae, this is an occasion to show one's status and wealth by burning candles embellished with gold leaf or silver pearls. The Darkhold offer a very different version of this holiday, seeking it more as a celebration of rebirth or shedding one's mortal days for a second life. Okay. The Tidal Maps. The best loved maps of the Shadow Realm are tidal maps, so called because they show the lands both at their widest flung extent, called high tide, as well as how the various landmarks are positioned during years or months of scrunched together conditions where sites cluster nearer, called low tide. These maps are enchanted to show the current state of such things, but the Fae consider them to be fairly mundane objects. Useful, surely, but not the sort of magical item that confers much status. Visitors to the realm consider them a vital necessity to get around during times of high tidal flux. Table 1-2, Drift and Tides Travel, a D20 table. On a 1, the travel time is increased by 100%, or travel time is increased by 200%, whether this is a Shadow Road variation or an Overland variation. 2 through 5, travel time is increased by 50%, or increased by 100%. On a 6 through 9, travel time is increased by 10%, and travel time is increased by 50%. 10 to 14, travel time is usual. In Overland, travel time is increased by 10%. On a 15 through 18, travel time is reduced by 10. In Overland, travel time is usual. On a 19, travel time is reduced by 20%, and in Overland, travel time is reduced by 10%. On a 20, travel time is reduced by 30%, while travel time in the Overland is reduced by 20%. And finally, on a 21 plus, travel time is reduced by 50%, whereas travel time in the Overland is reduced by 30%. Tides and Travels. If you ever learn to walk the shadow roads, the Shadow Realm can be your playground. Anger the roads and the wind will always be at your face. The forest is always dark, the path always sorrowful. Dark magic infuses the realm, and that means that temptations corrupt the mortals who visit here. See Shadow Corruption in Chapter 5. In the Shadow Realm, you must listen hard to hear the tides coming. When the Ebon Tides run, distances change just as shadows bend and stretch as sources of light move. So travel from one point to another can be quite predictable for weeks, months, or even years, and then change suddenly during a time of strong tides. In other cases, the ebb and flow of the shifting land is much less obvious. Travel times between familiar places might change by a few minutes or even an hour, but not enough to change patterns of trade or familiar routes for road wardens or pilgrims. Natives return to high tide travel when conditions stretch the roads and the distances are longer than usual. They refer to low tide travel when conditions make distances collapse and visitors arrive faster than expected. Neither is considered especially unusual. When traveling along shadow roads, these effects are much less notable when traveling the overland. For willingness to travel in either mode, make a wisdom check on the drift and tides table when the Ebon Tides are strong. This table can and should be ignored for travel during times when the plane is quiet and shifts are minimal. Famous shadow roads and portals of Midgard. The most famous shadow roads are the original Black Road to Zobek, the Lantern Road between the two sides of Coramel, and the Cat's Road near Fandival. But many other such roads exist, as well as portals to Seawall, Margao, Triolo, and the Scarlet Citadel. For those shadow roads known by more than a rarefied few, the best known ones are these four. The Mage's Road from the Court of Midnight Teeth to the Mage City of Benmia, Alarus Road from the Goddess's Temple of Merryme to Burgund, Flower Road from the Court of Pale Roses to Carnessa, or the Moon Road from Vanderbilt to Conmay. Other roads are decidedly more obscure, such as the Trickster's Road to Skaldholm, known primarily among the Bardic College of Shadows, and some of the elderly bearfolk. The Maze Road from the Echoing Shore to Capoleon, known among Minotaurs and Shadow Goblins, the River Road in the Arbanese, which continues on to Brighter Realms, and the road to the gnomish city of Hexen in Nimeheim, best known as Ending a Mirror, in the Court of the Midnight Teeth. Not all roads or portals lead to the mortal lands of Midgard. Connections to the plains are also well represented, including to Selendora and the summer lands of the Elves to Yggdrasil. Okay, I've already forgotten the pronunciation. Yggdrasil. All right. Yggdrasil. I'm okay. I'm just improvising from there. Through the Court of the Golden Oak and the various bear folk roads, and frequently distinct connections to Evermaw, Nilfheim, and the luminous hell of fire and sulfur, via roads in the Twilight Empire. The sky and the waters, just as the land of the Ebon Tides is different, so are its skies and its water. Moonlight and twilight are the nearest analogies. There's never a full noon sun or even proper daylight, though muddy light is common enough. Likewise, a cold, black night is almost impossible. Stars, comets, luminous streams and clouds, and even a diffused glow from fog, and land all renders... some light. Colors wash out quickly except in places lit by magic or firelight. Colorful items brought to the shadows from the mortal world sometimes fade permanently, remaining untouched by the muted tones of the shadow even when taken back to mortal lands. Eternal twilight. Pretty. So I think I was somewhat inspired by this, and so I tend to make my realm, the realm of Metaluna, our place of eternal sunset. So, it's probably just something in the back of my mind that hearkened me to that. All right. Shadow waters. Some of the Shadow Realm's waterways, streams, lakes, and rivers are a bit more disquieting and certainly more dangerous in the sky. These streams, lakes, and rivers contain rushing cascades or ribbons of pure shadow stuff, especially in the spring when the shadow itself seems to flow down the hills with each gray rainfall. Two major waterways twist like links of back silk across the plain, the rivers Styx and Lethe. These tributaries and minor outlets reach nearly every corner of the realm, providing access ways if one can survive the perils of a waterborne journey. The shores of the Shadow Realm look out on the inky expanse of the Shade Sea, an endless roiling stretch of wavering darkness to the south, and the chill waters of the Frost Gulf to the north. A DC 13 wisdom check is enough for a native of the Shadow Realm to distinguish hazardous conditions in a body of water. This check is made with disadvantages for visitors to the plane. A success reveals the danger, while a failure means that the water is meant to be normal, potentially leading to shadow corruption, and similar ill effects. Mirrors and echoes. If one could look down from a star's eye view, the Shadow Realm would resemble the mortal world as seen through a smoked glass mirror. Prominent landmarks have echoes in the Shadow Realm, often playing host to similar or sometimes opposite essences. For instance, a population center in the mortal world might correspond to a city or town where natives of the umbral plane live and scheme, or it could hold a blighted desolation of tumbled stones and salted fields where a settlement once stood. Warped resemblances. Despite the overall similarities, a keen understanding of mortal world geography does not provide a key to navigating the Shadow Realm. The plane stretches and twists, distorted in dimension and shape when compared to places in the material world. Distances can deceive an unwary traveler, and directions become confused. Relationships between places in the Shadow Realm even change over time. The way of shadow lengthens and shrinks as the sun travels through the day. A mountain pass might lead to a vast forest one year, and to a desert of black sand the next. While the distortion of the landed regions of the Shadow Realm can be vexing enough, the vast emptiness of the Shade Sea is completely unpredictable. Few crews, brave or unfortunate enough to venture out of the open Shade Sea, have never returned, and those who did were never the same. Rare are those visitors that willingly travel to the Shadow Realm, and most have at least some understanding of the place before they cross that threshold. From mighty wizards who weave magic to bear them beyond the light to brash explorers who discover the secrets of a forgotten passage into darkness, these adventurers should know what awaits them. Some cultures nurture a relationship with the Shadow Realm, though these are often misunderstood or rightly feared. Gods of the Old Road. The ancient roads of the Shadow Realm are one of the secrets to understanding how the Shadow Realm's inhabitants thrive, and they have a number of quirks and customs. In particular, the roads themselves have minor gods, road saints akin to river spirits and fey lords, and ladies that rule small domains, landscapes, or regions. Each has a name, and they are often found in pairs. The road saints are called the gods of the old roads, and most of them seem to be very old indeed. While they have no priesthood other than the Door Lord, they are still revered in small ways by travelers seeking respite. The voices of the gods of the old roads can be heard at their shrines, small statues with stone roofs, found most often at a crossroads where a shadow road splits into a shadow path and a side path, often called a shadow door or a portal path. At these places, travelers can rest in relative safety by making a small offering at the shrine and remaining close to it. Some part of the consecration the site still holds strong. A few of the gods of the old roads have old names given them in ancient past and marked in runes in some of their shrines. Klavig, Aber, Hune, Mantellan, Ragel, Viacora, Vanta, when their names are invoked, is often the context of a shadow portal spell. Etiquette and status in the Shadow Realm. The Shadow Realm is home to many unique creatures and species, but is arguably best known as the home of the Shadow Fae. The Shadow Fae resemble other humanoids such as humans or elves, but their culture is quite alien to most who live in the mortal world, being full of changing and confounding rituals, edicts, and rules. While this is true that some Shadow Fae preferences and mores change over time, certain facts do remain consistent. Okay. Shadow Realm status adjustments. Okay, this is basically a table that runs from negative to positive. On a -8, an action would be to threaten or attack a Fey Noble. On a 3, perpetuation or arson or vandalism against a member of a court or their holdings. Also on a 3, get caught by brawling or otherwise causing a violent scene in the court. On a -2, be fooled by a Shadow Fae illusion. On a -2, flee a member of the court who seeks your arrest or imprisonment. On a -2, disobey a direct order or deny a quest from a member of the court. On a -2, be seen sneaking over the palace walls. On a -1, be the victim of a Shadow Fae prank. On a -1, kill more than a Shadow Goblin or other Shadow Fae servant. -1, lose a Fae consort's affections. -1, threaten a courtier to gain audience with the court. On a +1, defeat a Fey creature with a challenge rating equal or greater to your level in single combat. This can be done a maximum of 5 times. +1, successfully use charisma, deception, intimidation, or persuasion on a Fey creature with a challenge rating equal to or greater than your level to gain information or a favor. This can be done no more than once per Shadow Fae and no more than 5 times total. On a +1, successfully learn a fact about a specific Shadow Fae or the workings of the courts with an intelligence or charisma check. This can be done no more than 5 times total. +1, successfully play a prank on a Fey creature with a challenge rating equal or greater than your level. This can be done no more than once per Shadow Fae. Continually pranking the same Shadow Fae likely results in reprisal and the potential loss of status. On a +1, you take a Shadow Fae as a consort. On a +1, you receive a gift from the member of the court. On a +1, receive an invitation to dine or hunt with a member of the court. This benefit can be gained only once from any given member of the court. On a +2, you can join a Shadow Fae organization. On a +3, save a member of the court's life or dignity. or on a 5 be acclaimed by the Queen of Night and Magic as her champion, and this benefit can be gained only once. Yeah, repeatedly pranking the same face. So this kind of goes slightly back to what I was saying earlier when it comes to the etiquette of engaging somebody from the Seelie or Unseelie Court of Avalon. In those myths, Fays are typically pranksters, that they tend to level their ability to make pranks on Midlanders, and as a result, they're even capable of taking some humans as their personal servants. They frequently do this by trying to get a human to give them their full real name. And so doing that, always activates a contract with the Fae that suggests that now they need to be a servant to the Fae. So what they're kind of reaching at when it comes to status adjustments in this situation is that this could be rolled in any table in any kind of situation between any NPC and any main character, and based on what the numeration is going to be, whether it's negative or positive, that is going to be determining whether or not you get good fortune as a result of an encounter with a Fae. And so this seems to be pertaining to other members of the Fae Court, whereas ordinarily it would really just be the relationship between the Fae Court and humans. But then, yeah, that's kind of overstating things at that point. The courts of the Fae are the foundation of the realm. Many lords and ladies of the Shadow Fae, Sable Elves, Gnomes, and others claim to rule the Shadow Realm, but most such claims apply to a fragment of the whole or to a particular time or season. For instance, the Moonlit King is in power during the Winter Court rule, and Sarastra is in power during the Summer Court rule. If an individual acts in a manner as prescribed by the Fae rulers, its time in the courts and then dealing with members of the courts is often easier and safer. Wheels within wheels. When dealing with the Fae, the wiser heads realize that what they say is not necessarily what they mean. The Fae are immortal creatures of whimsy and caprice. They enjoy watching mortals struggle to comprehend their true intent. Status matters. The courts are impenetrable labyrinths or empty shells to creatures who simply lack the status and importance required to interact with them. There are ways to increase or decrease one's esteem in the eyes of the courts. See the status adjustments table below, and the Midgard World Book for more on the optional status rule. The Fae have envy for mortals. While few of the capricious creatures would admit to it, the Shadow Fae and Gnomes are jealous of mortals. They view mortal experiences as being both truer and more primal than the existence of longer-lived and more sophisticated races. Harming a servant is dishonorable. While the Shadow Fae may or may not like or trust their servants, they do rely on creatures to make their lives comfortable. Harming or killing a servant is therefore abhorrent to them. The following are a dozen examples of Shadow Fae etiquette and mores that are immutable and might change depending on the week or month or on which court is in power at the time. One is that you should not eat root vegetables, for they are disgusting and offensive to the sensibilities of all civilized creatures. Do not harm any Shadow Fae outside of an honorable duel. Do not run, for it causes one to sweat like a laborer. You must leave your parents' presence announced in song before entering a room. Civilized folk wear powdered wigs. Clothing made of sackcloth is all the rage, and anyone not wearing a sackcloth dress or breeches is to be considered a fool. No potatoes. No potatoes. I guess this is why we haven't really heard much of halflings in this realm. True gentlefolk duel with insults, not steal. Hunting is only to be done on the 6th day of the week. Only pretentious twits play playing cards. Oh, that one hurts me in a personal way. All ladies of the court must use illusions to appear human. Boasting of one's own achievements is never acceptable on the 2nd day of the week. One above a certain station must have exactly 13 servants. Okay. Umbral people and heroes. The Shadow Realm is home to both strange creatures and ordinary folks, all of them shaped by the land in one way or another. Among them, 5 groups have arisen as the primary powers each struggling to control the Ebon Tides and maintain their holdings. These are the Bear Folk, the Dark Cool, the Shadow Fae, the Shadow Goblins, and the Umbral Humans. Each group rules their corners of the realm, governing settlements, constructing roads, and generally existing in large enough numbers to maintain their towns and cities. Other groups, Quick Steps, Arena, and Weird Gnomes, have a foothold in the realm from the beginning as servitors of the Shadow Fae, and while many still fill that role, they have also carved off some modest holdings of their own. The Ratatusk, of course, have a small presence everywhere that the World Tree's branches reach, and the Stygian Shades are simply the Shadow Realm's unique form of the shades that appear anywhere that mortals dwell. And of course, a few peoples have come new to the Shadows, only recently attracted to its mystery and power for various reasons, including the Ravenfolk and the Sartar. Bearfolk. All Bearfolk share an inherent iron resolve, but none more so than those who call the Shadow Realm their home. The Bearfolk who hail from the moonlit glades are hardened by a life of constant peril, their ever-present battle against shadow corruption. Only by banding together in tight-knit communities dedicated to fulfilling their noble purpose have the Bearfolk miraculously continued to thrive. Since Mesekaiman, the Bear King, issued his faithful decree, the Bearfolk have fought as a source of light in the Shadow Realm. While most of the region is deadly to even the most capable of travelers, the Bearfolk have carved out pockets of safety guarded by druidic magic. Hard-won wisdom has taught Bearfolk the secrets of resisting and purifying shadow corruption. As their mission to drive back the darkness has grown over the centuries, generations of Bearfolk have been born in the Shadow Realm, and the longer that they stay, the more of each new generation show an innate power to shape the darkness that surrounds them. Bearfolk names. Bearfolk are given cub names by their parents, and when they come of age, they earn a new name, either bestowed upon them by an elder or one they choose themselves. The name benefits a deed undertaken during their rite of passage into adulthood, describes some honorable or prominent trait of the Bearfolk in question, or honors an ancestor. Male names: Beors, Caldevere, Seardhen, Doringal, Erlant, Geralt, Hovestir, Lode, Nodher, and Yern. Female names: Anga, Burley, Dagna, Dirta, Farla, Ingerd, Joanna, Padha, Sivier, and Tuli. Dead names: Fireheart, Ironhide, Lightblade, Moondancer, Razorclaws, Shadowbane, Stonebones, Valgerstadter, Yellowfang, and Urinson. Your Bearfolk character has certain characters in common with all other... your Bearfolk has certain characteristics in common with all other Bearfolk. Strength increases by 2. Bearfolk come in their age in their late teens and live around 80 years. Bearfolk are predominantly good, mistrusting, and shunning evil. While they hold rich traditions, they value their freedom and tend towards chaotic alignments. Bearfolk can reach a height of over 7 feet. With thick, muscular builds, your size is medium. Your base walking speed is 30 feet. Your powerful jaws are natural weapons, deal 1d6 plus your strength modifier in piercing damage. Natural armor, granting you an AC of 13 plus your dexterity modifier. Powerful build, you count as one size larger when determining your carrying capacity and the weight you can push, drag, or lift. Earth sign talent, you have proficiency in athletics and perception skills. Language, you can speak, read, and write, either common or umbral. And subrace, a subrace of Bearfolk has arisen in the Shadow Realm called the Shadowborn. Peoples of fantasy. Every fantasy world is filled with a wide variety of people and civilization. Here you'll find new races and cultures, from the Bearfolk to the Dracul to Shadow Goblins. You'll also find new sub-races of existing races, such as the Weird Gnomes and the Sable Elves. Each race has statistics to provide a guideline for a typical member of that race. Not every individual exhibits these traits, be it in alignment, training, or disposition. If you want to create a character different from a typical member of their race, go for it. Players, be sure to work with your GM to determine which ability scores, alignment, traits would best fit that character, and the story your GM wants to tell about the character. The Bearfolk in Midgard. The Bearfolk have a rich history throughout the Northlands and the Midgard campaign setting. You can find additional Bearfolk options in the Midgard Heroes Handbook. The Shadowborn Bearfolk. As a Shadowborn, you're one of the cubs born in the Shadow Realm with a proclivity for the darkness. Shadowborn are marked by gray coats from infancy, and sometimes possess strangely arcane black markings. Shadowborn not only seem to resist the darkness more easily than other bearfolk, but they are also often drawn to its presence. Dexterity increases by 1. Cloak of Night. While in dim light or darkness, you have advantage on dexterity checks, and you can take the hide action as a bonus action. And Dark Vision, you can see in dim light within 60 feet. Yeah, Shadow Bears. Quite literally Shadow Bears. Really good for being a rogue, but then so would most, Underdark creatures. The Draculs are no stranger to darkness, and over the years, members of the Twilight Empire deftly adapted to their new home and carved out a thriving civilization in the Shadow Realm. They have grown into a powerful force. Living flesh is scarce in the Shadow Realm, so while the Draculs still hunt the living denizens of the plane and maintain elaborate trade networks to secure living cargo from mortal lands, they have discovered that the crackling trees and invasive species originating in Evermaw can assuage most of their hunger and have learned to subsist on the blood-like sap drawn from these trees. This practice marks them, though, for the corruption inherent in the flora, cause a permanent blacking of their teeth, recession of their gums, and a shriveling of flesh around the mouth. As a result, the Dracul of the Shadow Realm are much less concerned with concealing their true nature. After all, they're far from the worst things that stalk the darkness. In addition to heritage subrace offers presented in the Tome of Heroes, a Dracul character from the Shadow Realm can choose one of the options below. Dracul names. Ghouls tend to keep their first names from their time among the living. Their surnames, however, tend to be granted by the newly arrived Dracul after crossing their passage onto death. These are sometimes the name of a patron lord or lady, or a name used within the legions of the Empire, or within a particular faith. Some common lineage names are provided below. Some names are most common in the priesthoods, while others are from the legions. Others from those areas, surnames often celebrate particular affiliations in the trades of a mark tied to a founder or a particular note. Because of this naming custom, different Dracul can end up with the same surname, due to be chosen by the same patron, being part of the same temple, being the spawn of another Dracul, or some similar circumstance. Ghouls created outside the influence of the Twilight must take on surnames related to their personal goals. Keep their original surnames if attempting to gain some semblance of their previous life, or forego a surname to avoid ties to the past, a church, or a patron. Dracul surnames of priesthood: Al-Mat, Al-Khan, Akma, Al-Dan, Bloodtide, or Bartisan. Surnames of the legions: Bonecracker, Ivory, Maggot, Mortis, Reaver, and Secundus. Traditional Dracul surnames: Blackwater, Bloodborne, Calva, Canis, Carver, Corvin, Dawnblinder, Demonfinder, Eldest, Fulgin, Ghost, Gnoll, Feeder, Hunter, Jaeger, Miner, or Candace, Osior, Ravenfeeder, Shadowsmith, Strigator, Strixstinker, Tanner, Umbro, Unsalted, Verskal, Vespertan, Whisperton, Wormsong, and Wraithcaller. So, interesting names. So, we're going to go ahead and end this because, we've described the, at least we've described a variant race of the bear people. We're going to move on from this point forward, and we are going to start to read about other unique races like the Dracul and the Shadow Goblins. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to save it for part 2 of this read-through, which we're going to do next week. So thank you once again for tuning in to Brainy the RPG Cat. I knew I took just the tiniest additional risk in order to bring this episode to you, but that's all over now. So, I do appreciate OS Devin for tuning in tonight. I still definitely need to practice reading the name Yggdrasil. 2 pints. You're crazy, but well, we've only just begun. So you've probably seen announced on my Twitter page at this point that we're going to be closing off the Neurodivercat arc, and we're going to be starting a new arc in May called the Warlock and Roll arc. And Okay, Devin is saying Yggdrasil. So, in this new art, well, I'm not going to spoil anything about it, but, it is definitely, we're definitely going to be bringing out some significant changes to the channel, the show format, and the way that we interact all across our social media. So, I hope you're willing to be joining us in May, where we're going to be a lot of significant changes to Brainy the RPG Cat. We're going to continue to build, we're going to continue to progress, and enact real change just like we did this month when we raised $1,000 for Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. Devin is saying, wonderful arc, smashing success. Well, I appreciate that. So, thank you everybody for tuning in to Brainy the RPG Cat. We are going to be doing a raid now. Let's see, who would we like to visit? I think, let's see who might be on right now. Big Nose Bug is on, so is Johnny Jellyjaw. Jay Dockleton is on. Kabahal the Raven. Marin Mermaid is right now. She's playing a search and find game called I Commissioned Some Bees Part 3. So I think we're going to go ahead. We're going to pay them a visit. So we're going to be back we're going to be back tomorrow on Friday. And we are going to be playing our very first playthrough of Mega Man Battle Network. And so, big surprise. A lot of people on Twitch are playing it right now. I just want to go ahead and I want to get started. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Have a good night, everybody. And thank you, everybody, for watching.